Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be my next Legacy of Yangchen chapter analysis video, and this one will be for chapter 10, Gravity. So this is kind of the chapter that really kicks the action off. Now, we technically got it at the end of the last chapter from Kavik's perspective, but in this chapter we get to see kind of what Yangchen was up to since she dropped Kavik off, and then her getting through the explosions basically starting, and then a little bit more. So very, very interesting chapter here. So she obviously is arriving at the village. Of course, she dropped Kavik off because she knew a crowd was going to gather, so she let him off first so he wouldn't have to be part of this. As she lands, of course, we're nearby the Northern Air Temple here. One of the Northern Air Temple airbenders kind of arrive. So this is this character named Ming Yer, and now he is described as being 5 years older than Yangchen here, and his bison is one of the kind of older sisters, I suppose, effectively, of Nujian. It is described here that his bison, Feng Bao, she is, obviously older than Nujian, but it says here they came from the same parents but in different litters, separated by a few years. So sort of in a similar way to, I suppose, Yangchen's age difference to Ming Yer. Their bison also have similar age differences here. So that's just a nice little note here as she playfully butts against her younger brother Nujian. So Ming Yer notes that, like, oh, I see Chief Oiluk was as generous as ever, and he's like, but wait, where's your glider? Which he's obviously kind of given away at this point. She just lies and says, it's in there somewhere, and he notes that you should keep it on you for safety. I make sure my men always have their staves when they're on duty. And Yangchen's just like, oh, look, he's a very skilled fighter. He doesn't have his airbending tattoos just yet. But she also notes that he said men, referring to like his fellow brothers. And this is obviously referencing from the first book, what Abbot Sonam kind of pointed out to Yangchen at the end of the first book about, you've turned your, brothers and sisters effectively into jailers here. I'm worried how this will affect the sort of atmosphere at the temple. And she notes here that, the Northern Air Temple had been infiltrated by thoughts and languages of other nations. He didn't have men. Why are they talking about always being armed and kind of organized in this exact way? Well, it's kind of because this is part of Yangchen's kind of whole plans. And she just notes that, like, she's maybe not super worried for everything changing at the air temples, but she's almost the most worried about, like, herself. Her grip is the one kind of failing the kind of quickest, because she has kind of accelerated this kind of change to happening here. So anyway, she lands and obviously is greeted by the people. They are just so ecstatic to see her, like it was in Bin Ur. And she's kind of like, friends, it heartens me to see you prosper in my absence. But you can see she is really struggling here. She doesn't know what to say to the people, because she kind of considers herself to be a little bit of a fraud here, because she can't ever tell the people kind of the true lengths that she kind of goes through to make success happen in these places. And because of that, she kind of feels she's constantly lying to people. And there's a lot of pressure kind of building up based on some of the other themes being explored in the chapter. And she's just like, but before she has to say anything else, this is when she senses like the explosions going off around her. The tremor in the earth reached her feet before her ears caught the sound of the explosion. So it's interesting there. Interestingly, her initial reaction is just kind of like, she goes to the wrong places first. She's just like, surely there's some sort of a reason why one of the combustion benders has decided to use their powers. There's no way immediately this is like an escape attempt or something's gone very wrong. Maybe it was just a demonstration. Maybe it was a prank, but no. As it continues on, she very quickly snaps back into focus here and realizes that at least one of the unanimity members is loose, potentially all of them, and she gets kind of straight down to business, because she realizes that everyone is running away because what has happened is that the explosions have caused a rock slide. Because again, we're in a mountainous region up here near the Northern Air Temple. We know the terrain is not great, so rock slides are going to be devastating up here. And she springs straight into action here to deal with the rock slide first. So she has to deal with this kind of natural disaster before she even approaches getting towards the actual source of the explosion, the combustion benders. So she leaps kind of into the air to kind of she basically catches with her back one of the huge chunks of rocks kind of falling down the mountainside, and kind of blunts the impact on the ground, and then kind of full on earth bending, kind of like jams herself in against the kind of side of the mountain to try and kind of like hold everything in place. So it's they really get across the idea of like the strain of doing this sort of like almost earth bending kind of like weightlifting, which we've seen before, like the strain that can go through your body here. And she's just completely like kind of stretched out, kind of trying to have an influence over a huge chunk of like the cliff kind of wall here doing this. It's mentioned here that like she a jagged piece of kind of earth kind of cuts her. A fragment of her own tooth snapped off by the pressure. So this is highlighting the extreme strain that she's under here. And she noticed that, of course, the townsfolk nearby are just like terrified by what's going on here. They've lived up here for a while. They know to get away from this stuff. But she realizes she needs some help. And she's like, help me if there's any earth benders around, any benders at all. Help me join the kind of basically get rid of the strain here, because she's kind of immediately thinking that like, I need to use the avatar state, but I can't just kind of in a way activate it in this really kind of strained position, because the activation will probably like make things worse. So she needs to kind of like back off for a second, activate it, and then kind of attack the problem afterwards. But there doesn't seem to be anyone to help. She notes that like she's kind of questioning, like, did they decide all by like one by one or all by themselves? They are running away. No one is jumping in to help. They've all made the decision here. And, you know, she's kind of having this thing of like kind of questioning humanity. But in this case, she actually kind of thinks it through and realizes that like, no, they are allowed to do this. They are allowed to prioritize their own safety, the safety of their families before her. She kind of does note that, like, in a way, this is in a way the kind of being the avatar. This is part of what it brings. A lot of people view it as being this very privileged position in the world, that you have won the jackpot, being born as the avatar, immediately into effectively a default position of power in the world, having all four elements and stuff like that, being so powerful. But in a way, the counter to that is that often you will be looked upon to do so much by yourself, and there won't be as much of a, oh, we need to help everyone out type situation here. She notes that one thing she's read before about avatarhood is that avatarhood was a prize beyond kingship, and she's kind of realizing that here. But as she's kind of, no one's helping her, she spots people running in the other direction towards her. It's her team. She spots Kavik, Jujinta, Taigum, Akudan running against the grain here, trying to get to her, but they're kind of pretty far away, of course. So Kavik is even kind of mouthing the words like, you know, hold on, we're coming, but she knows they're kind of not going to get in over here straight away. And yeah, she's again noting, I need to use the avatar state, but then right as things that look to get bad here, like she might have to make a risky move, some of the pressure is eased. Nujian is here, and he's pushing back against the rock slide as well. This takes some of the weight off her. Then other air nomads with their bison come in, they're helping out, and suddenly she is given the ability to kind of back off a little bit and, you know, go into the avatar state. So it says here, Yangchen sprang off the cliff, spinning to face the peak, and while in free fall, clothed herself in the power. And then we cut to, now she is there in control of the avatar state, and a very interesting scene while she uses the avatar state. This is very, very interesting, given that she's been dealing with this whole idea of, you know, what if I gave up on humanity? Now she is fully embracing the crazy power of the Avatar that is the Avatar state, where she effectively becomes as close as possible to a kind of god in the world in this moment here. So really nice description at the start here. Each of her predecessors would have described the Avatar state in their own unique way. Coming home to the welcoming arms of family, rising above the treetops like a giant, becoming truly, completely unfettered, breaking free of stubborn chains. For Yangchen, it was the gratification of seeing her will embodied without question. While the energies remained within her grip, she could shape the stuff of the world. And so she notes that, like, she has so much power here. This landslide, which was a threat to everyone while she wasn't using the Avatar state, is this tiny, insignificant thing to her with the amount of power that she has right now. She can just immediately use her earthbending and send the landslide back up completely in reverse against the flow that it's naturally kind of falling in. She compresses some rocks here, tightens them back into place, and it's like, yeah, that's what she can do here. She can do landscape kind of modification effectively here in the Avatar state. So this rock slide, she can kind of just be like, oh, this is kind of flowing earth. What if I just like solidified that and then locked it into the mountain in roughly the shape it was in before the rock slide actually happened? And it's just like, you know, there we go. She does note, you know, it's visibly shrunken, a memorial to her deed. So very, very cool stuff there. But then, with that done, she's kind of up there, kind of like in a whirling sphere of air, kind of thinking to herself, like, you know, I can control everything except humans. Why are they so wayward? Why do they kind of in a way think themselves so special? And she's literally like flying above them, just looking down at them like, you know, look at what I can do without them. Look at how weak they are without me. And she thinks to herself, what if I just stayed in the Avatar state? I don't have to go back to kind of the way things were before. And she's kind of like, like what would happen? Is it even possible for me to stay in this permanently? And she's noting that like almost every time she uses the Avatar state, the temptation to almost try and find out what would happen grows stronger every single time. But it's at this point she kind of can now sense that other explosions are going off in the distance. And in the Avatar state, of course, she has a very interesting perspective on this, in that she doesn't think of this necessarily as this kind of frightening thing. She's like, oh, the only benders in the world who can maybe hope to, you know, say that they have a somewhat equivalent level of power to the Avatar state. You know, she's annoyed, she's affronted. A power to rival her own shouldn't exist in the cosmos is kind of her approach here. And she kind of notes the kind of the arrogance that can overtake an Avatar when they're in the Avatar state, because it almost isn't arrogance, because they just objectively do have so much power. They are above everyone else. So it's like, you know, anyone would be changed by such kind of like incredible power, having it on tap like this. But this is when it says here, and then her frailties caught up with her. A little bit of panic kind of seeps in, and she falls out of the Avatar state kind of in mid-air. So I think what they're kind of getting at here is that, you know, this is, of course, the human side of her. That this is the Avatar is not just an all-powerful spirit being. The human side of her catches up. It might be some combination of how exhausted she is, having only just got kind of a night's sleep recently, otherwise draining herself a lot over the last while. She falls out here of the Avatar state, just barely kind of catches herself when Nujian kind of comes down to kind of save her here. And she just notes that, like, this was particularly bad in a way, the way the Avatar state went here, because when she used it in Port Tugok to uncover the kind of firing range, there was no real humans around to bring up these feelings of contempt. So it kind of worked very normally there. She notes that her arrogance hadn't spiraled out of control that badly since Old Iron, so since the event from the Rift where she fought against Old Iron. So at this point now, Ming Yer kind of flies up close to her. she gives him orders straight away to show that she's not in the Avatar state anymore. She's like, evacuate everyone to the flat zones. They note that there are actually like emergency contingencies for earthquakes being up here, but there's a lot of people to deal with here with so much kind of chaos going on. He then brings up like, so the guests that we have staying here, what are we going to do? And she's just like, I will deal with them. Alone? Go now. So Mingyur heads off as Yangchen kind of realizes that like, okay, I'm going to need some assistance here. I can't do everything on my own. So she spots her team still trying to make their way towards her. And she notes that, like, okay, she completely trusts Taegum and Akudan. She hasn't fully vetted Jujinta yet. You know, he's still pretty new. And then she notes, and then there was Kavik. And she's kind of like, I kind of want to blame him for what has happened here, because everything has gone wrong. But it logically cannot possibly be his fault in any way. He literally just arrived at the village. Now, there's no way he could have done anything here. And she just notes that beggars couldn't be choosers. She needed all the bodies she could find. She has this, you know, almost like sarcastically, what an embarrassment of riches I have. And she flies down to basically pick up her team. And as she does this, she kind of notes that, like, oh yeah, we haven't fully worked together as a team all that much. Like, if we had been doing this a lot more kind of regularly together, we would have been able to just really kind of just swoop down nearby. Everyone just hops on immediately, but instead it has to be much more blunt, where she just like goes near them, lands, airbends all of them onto it, and they get going again. And she again quickly gets down to giving out the key orders of like, you know, we're heading to the Northern Air Temple. That's where the explosions are coming from. And she tells Akudan and Taegum to tell the abbot, Sonam, what is happening here. Taegum is like, what about the other guest? And she's like, Jujinta, I need you to go to this specific room and guard it, see what's happening, and wait for me there. And this is where Kavik figures out that, wait, there's another guest who isn't the firebenders. Wait. You've been holding Zongdu Honsha here as well? Like, this is him finding this out for the first time. And he's, like, very, very shocked by this. And so, you know, they're all a little bit like, oh, of course he figured it out without needing to any further clues, of course. But she's just like, you go with Jujinta, watch his back, and do what he tells you. So Kavik is like, really? You know, I'm now below Jujinta in the kind of Team Avatar pecking order here. But from Yangchen's perspective, she's like an act, him acting like he's jealous of the kind of swap in position. He was merely playing the sincere, jealous teammate to climb back into her good graces. She may as well have been giving orders to Mama Ayunarak. She says, Avatar companionship isn't tenured. Sometimes you have to start over from the beginning. So that's where the chapter ends, with the team going their kind of separate ways as they kind of head out. So, of course, Yangchen is now going to make her way towards the combustion benders. We have, of course, Jujinta and Kavik heading for where Honsha is. And we're going to find out, like, is it an escape attempt to get him out or what? And then, of course, Akudan and Taegum are just informing the kind of leadership of the area what exactly is going on. So, a very, very interesting chapter, of course, because like the Avatar state stuff is obviously going to be like much talked about, because we often don't really get a great perspective on like what exactly that is like. And this is not like defense mechanism Avatar state. This is Yangchen in control. And this is how an Avatar in control of the Avatar state feels. Like, it isn't the same as just like a lot of the times we see an Avatar like temporarily turn the glow on to kind of power up their next move. But she properly goes in and kind of like stays in there in control for a little bit. And you can see the sense of like the insane power that they have in this kind of form. Beginning to affect them, and Yangchen, with what she's thinking about over the kind of chapters building up to this, you get why she kind of acts the way she does in this kind of mode, kind of thinking that like, I'm above everyone, like, look what I can do, look what they can't do, and you know, they criticize me, they expect everything from me. Well, what if I just stayed like this the whole time? And it's kind of asking that question, the escape from the spirit world Yangchen question of like, why isn't the Avatar just like an all-powerful spirit being? Why do they have to be human? And the significance of that kind of being explored here in kind of moments like this. But yeah, nice little details like the introduction of Ming-Yu, who isn't a super significant character, but gets like a little bit of a kind of chance to shine over this and some upcoming chapters. Nice little details like his bison is related basically to Yangchen's bison. That's a nice little detail. Even just a little moment like before the Avatar state scene happens of just her jumping into action to save everyone from the rock slide, asking for help and not getting it, but having to like almost like logically go through it herself and be like, oh yeah, it's not the most reasonable thing to expect people to do what is expected of the Avatar, in a way that they have their own lives. This is the, you know, the pros and cons in a way of being the Avatar is she is expected 100% to do this and do this perfectly. But people are allowed to run away from this conflict or issue without being criticized themselves, and just that kind of whole idea coming into it as well. Very much the Avatar Goon exploration from the previous chapters, absolutely. So all that stuff is good. And then, yeah, even just a little moment of like just her noting her kind of her team, that like, you know, she needs like a group of the most powerful benders to do what she really truly wants to do. And while her team is good and skilled, only having this group of 4 characters, like she wishes she had so much more in this moment, but she has to do what she has to do with them. So like I said at the end of the previous chapter, we're seeing the team jump into action straight away, that she can put aside the whole issues surrounding Kavik's betrayal because she needs him. She needs bodies to get this stuff done here. And just noting that, like, yeah, you're back to the start, Kavik. You don't get to just benefit from coming back in, and that you were sort of in a high position straight away. No, you're back down to the start again here. So, you know, doing the right, I think, blend with Kavik of having moments where, you know, the armor comes down, she kind of can't just keep up the I'm annoyed at you the whole time situation, and that there are moments where she just has to be like, it is kind of back to normal in a way. So obviously we're still dealing with the whole idea here that this event kind of happening in the way it happens is getting in the way of like Kavik's overall mission. So how can he actually betray Yangchen over the location of unanimity when they are in the process of escaping kind of right now? So that kind of plot you could sort of see beginning to sort of fall apart a little bit here. But like I said earlier, it arguably for the best in the book, because it allows the relationship dynamic to be more of a thing about healing that relationship, rather than just it always being about when is Kavik going to betray her again, which I think is fine to set that up and I think was the right dynamic to do. But then the plot actually happening here getting in the way, I also think is the right thing to do as well. So yeah, there is chapter 10, Gravity. Let me know what your thoughts were on this one, but that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.